Next time we approve a quick trip, we'll ask a lot more questions.
I think that's what
Thank
somebody's.
you very much, Mr. Chairman.
We don't get to approve them, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Well, they're in the zoning.
Which one are we on?
Expansion.
Number 8.
Okay. Yeah, take the
Still a
deed
lot of people
restrictions
here.
out.
What the hell?
Okay, we're on number 8, and this was the one that Mr. Foster had a simple question. And I don't think anybody in the audience want to talk about number 8?
Yeah, I think there's people that want to talk about it.
Yes, we'll have a full presentation.
Hey, Mr. Chairman. Dave Year with staff. This is a request from primarily T-Mobile to construct a 75-foot wireless tower at the northeast corner of Funston and Broadway, located at this area. It is currently zoned LC. There's an aerial of the property, and you can see this land is vacant and has been vacant for many, many years. As previously noted, it is in the South Central Area Plan as well. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant. The entire property under consideration is outlined here. It's 100 feet by 150 feet, Broadway on the west, Funston Street on the south. There's an alley on the east side of the property. The compound area proposed is in the northeast quadrant of the lease area, and it's kind of outlined here as a blow-up showing we're 62 and a half feet by 40 feet in terms of the fenced area. The tower would be sitting kind of in the southwest quadrant of that fenced area. Access would be off of the alley. The key thing, I think, is the proposal that has been submitted by the applicant to take the balance of the property being leased, which is the 100-foot by 150-foot area that will be outside the fenced area, and dedicate it for a community garden. In fact, I do think we have a plan showing, we got submittal indicating that they had been working with the neighborhood association and had actually increased that area to where the intent will be to not only provide space for a community garden area on the north side of Funston Street, but also actually plant some, I presume, fruit trees of some kind that would become kind of a small orchard area for that area. As noted in the staff report and how timely of the discussion, there is the only zoning history on this case that jumps out is the fact that there was a request for a conditional use permit a number of years ago for a car lot on this property. That case was denied. So it's not the first time that we've seen these kinds of requests. Obviously, it's different when you're talking about introducing a car lot onto a vacant piece of dirt as opposed to a retrofit on a convenience store. So this has to go through a conditional use process because it's beyond our ability to grant administrative permit on. It's outside the area where those can be granted, so that's why we're doing a conditional use permit. We like the fact that we've seen a submission of a plan that takes a large lease area and converts it to something that would truly be beneficial to the larger community. Overall, the staff report recommends approval. We would attach to that a condition of approval that would also include the requirement of the development of the community garden. I'm not going to tell you that we need to specify what type of fruit trees or what's the number of spaces available. I'll leave that to work out between T-Mobile, the leaseholder, and also the neighborhood association. But we do think this is a positive addition to the community. As outlined in the documentation, other materials provided by T-Mobile, and what we're seeing on this citywide is that because of the changing demand in the digital market, primarily because everybody carries the smartphones and in order to provide continuity of coverage, we're seeing more of the need for these kinds of facilities. Staff is recommending approval, and as outlined in the staff report with conditions outlined therein. So be happy to answer any questions you.
Dave, I have a question. Who administers these community gardens?
I don't have a clue. We're not volunteering for the planning director to do that.
T-Mobile going to provide an on-site garden?
Well, they've got some history in what they do with that, and we have the agent here on behalf of T-Mobile that maybe
I'll
can
ask them.
address how they handle that in other communities.
Mr. Foster, you had a burning question.
Hey, at the bottom of page 2 on the staff report states, city engineering is requesting a commitment for dedication of additional right-of-way as a condition of this request, both along Broadway and Funston. But when I go to the,
Yeah, that I missed that, and that was an issue that was raised in the conditional use case back in '06. I've run the trap line again with city, and the initial time when the staff report was prepared, they kind of left a comment of, we'll get back with you on that. They never did. So the presumption is it's no longer an issue.
okay.
So it needs to just be removed.
Doesn't need to be a condition then?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the presenter? Seeing none, we'll have the owner or agent.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Knoll. I live at 1362 Laura Street in Wrightwood, California, and I am representing the applicant. I promise I won't take 10 minutes. I would like to thank staff for their help with this. They've been really helpful, and I really appreciate it. As they mentioned, there is a need in this area for increased coverage, and we, in the spirit of the neighborhood there and understanding that there was neighborhood involvement and an interest in the community, we decided to make the most of the property that was left over, and we do have, in response to that question, we have a community garden that's been very successful in my town, and our company is involved in that, and there are 2 or 3 people in our company who have been administering that community garden. And so we are hoping to provide the neighborhood association and also the orchard with materials and financial assistance to make sure that they can administer this themselves. And we will be, that's a long-term plan and something that we take very seriously, and since we have been successful, we think that will be successful as well. So I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Questions for the owner applicant, Mr. Daly?
If the people that you have to operate this in the community right around there, if they don't live up to doing that, then who's responsible for the upkeep of that land?
Well, we are, as I said, this is a long-term thing, and the community garden that we've put together in Wrightwood, for example, has changed hands many times, but it's been successful for 4 years, and we have people who are requesting lots that have to be on a waiting list, and so we think that that's something that after a certain point, we've seen that it kind of becomes important enough to the community that it demands upkeep.
Success.
Yeah.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone from the audience that would like to speak, please come forward.
Hi, Janet Price again, 2010 South Water Street, and the president of South Central Neighborhood Association and Improvement Alliance. And I just wanted to let you know that we have been working very closely with Jessica and Claire Talk, our leader in SOCI, Catherine, and the church. We have numerous groups who are interested in helping us do this community garden, so I feel like we can do it in a successful way. And it would definitely be a wonderful item to have on South Broadway compared to our other options. And we just really feel like we can do a good job with it. And Clear Talk is really supportive of the ideas and are willing to give us the guidance we need. So I think this can be a very successful thing for South Central neighborhood. And we're really in support.
Questions for the speaker? Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Janet Wilson, 1152 North Estelle. Thank you. I am a board member of WIN, and I am the chairperson of Community Gardens. So we are also a resource to the South Central Neighborhood Association, and one of their board members is also a member of the WIN board, and we will do whatever it takes to make it happen. I oversee 4 community gardens in District 1, and it would be nice to expand to the south side. We've got plans, we've got ideas, we partner with the extension office. So whatever they need to be successful, we are here for them, and we are more than happy to help them be successful.
Very much. Any questions? Seeing none. Anyone else from the audience?
Catherine Johnson, 1106 South Waco. I'm helping coordinate the garden project and working with different organizations in the neighborhood. And so to the practicality of this, Mr. Daly, speaking, how do you make this sustainable over a long time? And so I've worked with the Legacy Garden Works on and off over the 10 years that I've lived in the neighborhood, and I'm excited that they're partnering with us and having their youth program spearhead the orchard. And so I think that gives longevity to the program, because having the fruit trees is kind of a long-term commitment, and they've been working in our neighborhood for quite some time. So I think that helps just that level of commitment in an ongoing way. And then also, I've seen community gardens kind of dwindle at times when there are only individuals having plots. And so I work in the neighborhood doing asset-based community development and bringing organizations and individuals together. And so my plan is, I've already been reaching out to churches and other businesses to ask them to partner with us, even our grocery store and some of the restaurants, to adopt plots there so that it's a place where the neighborhood really comes together, and so that we have a really broad base of people participating and sustaining over the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Seeing them. Anyone else from the audience? Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Move we approve.
Moved by Mr. Green, second by Ms. Miles. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That's how many now? 5, 11, 0? Okay, next item. Item 9, and I apologize, it's taken us so long to get to this item, but that's the way it goes sometimes. We have zoning case 2017-00058 and CUP 2017-00056. And Dave, you get the honor of presenting this one also.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Apology accepted. It's okay. So. This is a request to both rezone a portion of the land outlined in the, we're rezoning the western portion of the property, which is currently zoned SF5, and the request is to zone it to LC to comply and be compatible with the balance of the underlying zoning, and then also amend CUP. This is DP8, the University Gardens project. The amendment to the CUP is what is probably the larger issue with this request. You can see the location. We are on the east side of Oliver, north of 21st Street. This outlines the area, and this is important to show this on the aerial because part of the project will include the raising and removal of this portion, the western portion of that strip center that's currently there. And we'll talk about that a little more here in a second. But that part of that commercial building will be taken down, and the redevelopment will occur that's proposed will happen within this larger area. It does not show on this aerial, but if you've been out by there recently, you know Quick Shop has built a new convenience store at the northeast corner, 21st and Oliver, and backs up. You'll see that on some of the aerials. This is in an area it's within the central established part of the established central area. It's also an area identified for residential and employment mix in the comprehensive plan. This is the site plan. It's kind of a blow up of what is proposed. Oliver is on the left-hand side, north is to the top. And this is a building footprint of the multifamily unit that's proposed to sit in the area. That current building comes and extends about like this. And that part will be torn down as part of this project, and they will come back in with the multifamily unit that the footprint of the building will sit at this location. That kind of shows the proposed landscaping outlined around the building. This is the, in white, the apartment, or the multifamily unit, and you can see the landscaping that's proposed, including some landscaping within the proposed parking lot. These are building elevations that are shown what is being proposed. This is a multi-story unit. As noted in the staff report, the intent of the developers on this will be to develop housing that will be targeted primarily for student housing associated with Wichita State. I'll let them talk about the concept behind what is happening with this, but this has been presented essentially as very comparable to the kinds of housing, of student housing that's being developed privately around universities all over the country. So we're not dealing with anything new and unique. It's maybe new and unique to Wichita and Wichita State a little bit, but it's not new and unique within the university world at all. This is an aerial photo of the site. I'm sitting in the parking lot just north of the Quick Trip store, looking back north and west. This is the entrance that comes off of Oliver into the site. You can see it's a double entrance. You'll see that in a better shot. Here's the current grassy area between the edge of the parking and Oliver. That's essentially sitting the same place looking due north. You can barely see the edge of the existing west end of the strip center. That is the currently what's called University Plaza, the west end of the shopping center, and this is the part that will be raised and removed with the new apartment project sitting in a large portion of this area. That's another shot towards the area that will be torn down, and you can barely see, but the break will be about this point. This portion of the building will be removed. This is looking back towards the site from Oliver. We're looking south and east. This is the back side of the new Quick Shop that is at 21st and Oliver. And it is all in this area. You can see the edge of the existing wall and screening activity that's happened for the property that's developed in apartments north of the site. That's the actual backside of Quick Shop. They don't look much better than Quick Trips, but that's another story for another day.
Strike that for the minute.
This is actually looking back west from back in the parking lot to the double entrance that comes in off of Oliver. So the conclusion we reached is that this project is consistent with not only the comprehensive plan, but the long-term development plan around Wichita State and the effort to see Wichita State continue to grow and expand as a major asset within the community. More student housing and more residential uses will be needed in the area. This makes this within walkable distance between, particularly a lot of the redevelopment activity occurring with the Innovation Center, whatever they call that at Wichita State. So it's highly compatible with that. Obviously, for those living there, they're going to be very close to some convenience because it's just across the parking lot to the quick shop. The improvements, traffic improvements have been extensive in this area. As you're well aware, 21st and Oliver, the intersection, there's a lot of improvements that have happened in the area. So we're finding this to be very compatible with the future redevelopment and growth of that community and that portion of the neighborhood. Staff's recommending approval. The conditions are outlined in the staff report. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for staff? Mr. McKay? You've been quiet.
Has it been taken into consideration, this may be competition to the WSU, or is it in conjunction with the WSU expansion? Or is,
For us to determine.
no, I'm just simply stating, I know it's not, but I just,
Just wants a longer
I believe
lead. What he says, yeah.
okay.
You want to say something out loud?
To him.
Oh,
No, yeah.
okay.
Dave, let's look at item G, which speaks to parking on parcel 8. I'm a little confused. It says it's going to meet the zoning code, and then we go ahead and say we provide a minimum of 160 parking stalls. What does that mean? If we don't meet the zoning code, we'll have to do at least 160? I don't understand why that phrase is in there.
No, what that is basically intending to say is that if it is developed as multifamily, they have to provide at least 160 spaces. The current site plan they've submitted and we reviewed earlier actually shows 186 spaces, if I remember counting that correctly. But if it doesn't develop in multifamily, the intent would be it might develop residentially in the LC, and if so, then they're going to have to provide whatever spaces, depending upon the size of any buildings that get built at that time.
But if code called for more than 160, they would have to develop more than 160 by code. They build enough apartments that it required 180 parking spaces, then they would have to put in 180, or are they going to?
Well, the intention of that language is that they've got to provide the off-street spaces based on how it's developed moving forward, which would be under the existing LC zoning. Now, whether that should be a semicolon versus a comma, we can debate about that. But the intent is that the last part of that phrase is to say, if it develops multifamily, then they have to provide 106. Now, okay, if you're basically saying, well, what if they actually are required based on more? Well, the CUP would control that. I think that's historically how that works. I'll defer to Mr. Miller if he's got any other thoughts on that.
What we're saying there is that it may not be developed as multifamily. They're asking for commercial zoning, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe the applicant would speak to it, but when it's his turn, but I guess I don't understand why the last phrase is there. If we're going to develop it by code, then why don't we leave it?
Yeah.
Is 160 spaces the minimum they need for what they're showing?
I don't have the ability to answer that off the top of
Not
my
getting
head. I'm
into
going
that
to defer.
discussion. It's just
I'll
by
defer to.
zoning code. Right?
I think so. I mean, that's my question.
Any other questions
It's a little confusing.
to the speaker? Okay, agent or applicant?
Good afternoon, Brian Lindeback, MKC Engineering, on behalf of the owners and the applicant, 411 North Webb Road. This is, of course, University Gardens. We're just had the subdivision approved earlier this afternoon, and thank you for your patience. And I'll try to be brief and try to abbreviate parts of the presentation as needed, and we can revisit them. The developer is College Wood, WSU LLC. They're located out of Indianapolis, Indiana. They have principals. Their principals have over 40 years of experience. They're very well adept at developing both multifamily properties as well as commercial properties. The architect on the team is Roseman Associates. They're based out of St. Louis, Missouri, but also have offices in Denver, Kansas City, and Atlanta. They've got many accolades for multifamily product, and they're very, very well suited for this project here. Of course, most of you guys know what MKC. I've got a little bit of bio here about us. We've been around since 1982. We too have a lot of awards for projects. In fact, we did work for the city with the improvements there at Oliver and 21st. This is the site that shows the quick shop that was recently built, looking north. Again, there's multifamily nearby already, as well as multifamily to the north and to east further. There's looking east. This is an innovation campus here. And then looking west, innovation campus here, multifamily. And lastly, looking south gives you a little bit of the backside of that building and how that relates to the property line and such. As most of you know, this property has been developed and around since the mid-70s. There used to be a Dillon's on the site, on this particular site. There's a little bit of the character of the existing facilities. I'd say in general there's some repairs that need to occur. This is some character of the existing signage out there. We, of course, notified 1,000 foot for this case, so there's a significant number of individuals that have been notified. Thing to note here is the CUP boundary is this white line, and I think I've got some other exhibits that help show that. And the black here is our single family going to limited commercial. And that's about 1.4 acres for the staff report and for what it shows here. This is our CUP. We are in agreement with staff comments. We worked diligently with staff and have crafted the language to protect the neighbors as well as increase the viability of this parcel. This is the existing zoning patterns. Of course, it's dominated by the university. There's some B multifamily, which I think most of you are familiar with the zoning criteria, but B multifamily is the highest multifamily zoning by right. There is these two large pockets, of course, are cemeteries. We've also got MF29, which is the second highest zoning category around us. So I guess what I'm trying to show you is that there's a lot of character that we're following in suit with what the history of this area has. And naturally, with university in the proximity of this, there needs to be multifamily housing. Of course, we've already looked at this map, but this is the 2035 concept plan for the area. And I think, without reiterating much there, this fits well into that comp plan. This is the innovation campus over here. There's been lots of new sidewalks and lots of trails developed with that plan. Again, we're suited very well to getting onto campus, both walking as well as cycling. With some of the plans I've seen, there's been some, with the multifamily, there's been some lockers for bicycles and things of that nature. So this is well positioned for success if this is approved today. The WSU shuttle system, again, well positioned. The apartment complex to the north of us has a node for the pickup and delivery of folks in the area that could attend the university and get on campus. And likewise, there's also Wichita Transit. All these gray nodes are, again, points where folks can get on the bus and go all over town. I'll skip through the golden rules. We can come back to that. This is our plat that was just approved. It's our final plat that was just approved. And I think this is what everybody wants to see is kind of what we're thinking. So we've already looked at a little bit of the site plan. I'll kind of walk you through that. Of course, there's a courtyard in the middle with what we have planned, and then units perimetering that courtyard. This is a concept plan. This is not necessarily exactly how it's going to develop out, but this is our hope. There's some things to figure out along the way. This would be the east elevation, and this would be the south elevation. So you would see the south elevation from the 21st Street. Of course, 21st Street is considerably higher, so you might not see the very floor of it. This is the west elevation, and this is the north elevation. A lot of times we don't have the pleasure of seeing these ideas with our community unit plans, but in this case, I'm glad we do, especially coming off the cases before us where they didn't have as much to show. This is the interior courtyard view of the different elevations. So there's lots of character there as well. The landscape that we have proposed here, we intend to re-landscape this buffer considerably. As you can see, there's lots of shade trees, and up against the footing of the building, there's going to be all sorts of landscaping that will soften the edge of the building. These are just a sampling of the different plant material. But one thing we try to do is come up with plant material that will sustain in our difficult Kansas climate. So I think another important thing to note is the lack of trees that are on the site today. We're going to be adding parking lot trees as well as part of this plan. And part of the plan that we've put before you is to add that, add that 1.5 times the landscape requirement into this request. So we've already preemptively done that. I think this plan actually goes above and beyond that from what the regs show. This view kind of helps. I think it was shown a little bit before. These show the plants as they're first planted. They'll get much taller, some of these plants. And then we didn't show the shade trees because it would kind of obscure a lot of the building, but because we wanted to show off the building as well. But there'll be shade trees on this west elevation, and of course some in the south elevation as well, and as well in the north. So here's some examples of projects completed. Roseman, as I've said, is our leader in the student living. There's various projects across the country. As you can see, they do a really good job of creating interiors that is inviting and exciting and youthful. These units are going to be fully furnished, so I don't know that they're limited to students, but certainly if there's other folks that want to live there in this multifamily environment, they'll be allowed to do so. But this gives you a little character of what you might expect to see, and I would stand for any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Foster.
Brian, now that you're giving us a good feeling for what this could look like, I'm thinking back to when we studied the plat, and now it's coming down to numbers, and it looks like there's going to be a widening of the roadway there. What I'm getting at is two questions. If you've only got 20 feet left over, I don't know if you're going to have a lot of luck getting shade trees planted in there, for one thing. But the second question is, on item C here for parcel 8, it mentions a maximum building height of 70 feet or 6 stories. The exhibits show you're going to need upwards of 50 feet minimum for the height of the structure. My concern is what happens to the neighbors there with something that, let's say it did go to 70 feet for some reason. That's pretty imposing on the neighbors across the street. So my question is, can you lower that 70 feet to 55 feet, 60 feet, and does that 20-foot setback really work and give you the dimension you need relative to the height?
It's interesting that the question there, they're actually correlated. With a building setback of what we're requesting, it fits really well with this design. If we did do a different design that required it to move a little bit bigger setback, we would need to go a little more vertical to achieve the same density. So I think with this concept, it's a really good concept to keeping that height as a reasonable level of 4 stories. But we'd like to have that option so that if concept-wise, that if we need to go a little bit higher and, of course, maybe a little further setback from the plan, but our full intention is to hold this 20 foot and then 25 on the north with our planning. I think it really works well with the space, and quite frankly, it is an urbanization of the area with more more folks here. I think it'll work really well. Oftentimes in urban environments you have, especially downtown, other areas you'll have short setbacks, and I think it really works well here. So I hope that kind of gives you a feel for what we're trying to achieve, and we'd like to have that flexibility, but I think we'd prefer to stick with the 6-story component for the simple flexibility of it.
Any other questions, Mr. Richardson?
Can you answer my questions with regards to item G?
Item G is talking about parking, yeah. So as you know, this is already zoned limited commercial on half of the parcel. We're adding a limited commercial component to the other half. Certainly, if the market required that it be commercial as opposed to multifamily, it would have to comply with that parking requirements for commercial. What we're trying to show here is that with it being developed as multifamily, our minimum standard would be 160 parks, and part of the reasoning for that is there's going to be a lot of walkability being introduced into this site, getting folks to and from campus, and we fully believe that would be sufficient. Moreover, there's additional parking elsewhere by agreement already, but I don't want to necessarily get into those details, but yes.
Well, sounds to me like what you're saying is the wording should be changed to a maximum of 160. That's what you're asking for, not a minimum.
No, I'm saying as a minimum threshold that we would provide 160 parks for this site if developed as multifamily. We can certainly add more if we so choose to meet the needs of the style of the site, but that is the plan.
So I think what you're saying is 160 doesn't necessarily meet the zoning requirements of what you want to build.
That's the idea, yeah. Certainly if we built a smaller multifamily development, maybe 160 wouldn't be needed, and this CUP could come back to the planning department for adjustment. But at this point, we're trying to plan for what we anticipate to be built, and that's the goal here
Really
with
going the
asking
other
for more.
way. If you build more, you may be required to have more than 160.
Right, or conversely, if we built less, we would maybe need.
Okay, but why don't we just leave it per zoning requirements?
I think there's some variation in the size.
So you're asking for a concession?
Yes, there's a little. Depending on the size of the project, there may be a need for more. But with the parking agreements that we have set forth, that we feel is a good number, is a sweet spot.
Yeah, I guess we ought to ask for staff interpretation on what they're reading here and how that would be. If you go for a building permit, what are they going to say?
Well, I mean, this says a minimum of 160. Well, what if the plans reviewer says they want 190?
If the plan reviewer?
Yeah, I mean, we need a standard, 3/4 of a space per unit or something to go by, or it could come down to just an arbitrary number.
What would the code require?
Well, it's based on the number of bedrooms.
We will what we'll do, if it's okay with the commission here, is we'll quantify this number with relation to our project and show it as a ratio to the bedrooms, if that's okay with everybody.
Well, I guess what I'm having a problem with,
I don't know what that means.
if we want to just do it based on the zoning ordinance, that's fine. If you're asking to meet 90% of the zoning ordinance requirement, then that's something we ought to deal with right now as a variation.
I'm not sure exactly the calculation right now of what the difference is, but it's not far off. But I can certainly quantify that and work with staff to make sure there's ample wording in there to cover all sorts of scenarios and make it easier to enforce.
Well, part of my concern here is, I'm not expert on the parking code, so I don't really know what I'm dealing with. Part of my concern is the rest of the tenets of this whole community unit plan. If enough parking's not built, I can guarantee you the students are going to park no matter where you tell them to park. And that's part of my concern is, would you be being fair to the rest of the people, the commercial businesses in this? And so I don't know what we're dealing with. I don't know what the concession is here. I don't know what the code would require. The way I read this, it says you're going to have to provide at least 100. If you built 10 apartments, you'd have to provide 160 spaces. That's what this says. I don't think that's what you mean, but if that's what you say, then I'm okay with that, because a minimum is a minimum. You would have to provide code on top of that, as I read it.
Yeah, we'll comply with code, and I'll just reiterate, there's additional parking off-site. There, I believe and the owner can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's some reciprocal parking that could occur as it currently sits. So the same burden that we would have parking on their property, they would have parking here as well. So
You mean reciprocal parking on site, outside of the boundaries of this ownership?
within these parcels on the south of the CUP, they have reciprocal parking presently.
As a part
It's a
of
legal document that
as a
backs
part
that
of
up.
the, okay.
So that's one reason why we're not overly concerned with the way it sits today, because of there's quite frankly probably a glut of parking out there with the types of businesses that are out there today.
I think they're shooting themselves in the foot, but so be it. Yeah, let them go.
All right. Any more questions? None, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone from, let me see, you have a question for him?
Well, yeah, I think a clarification here, because Lowell brings up a good point. They're shooting themselves in the foot the way this is written. And I think we're all sitting there shaking our head, yes. And he said he'll do it according to code, but that's not what this says. So we're going to prove what this says, not what he said.
What I'd maybe suggest is that we work with staff to quantify the ratio that we are desiring here at 160, and we'll work with staff to make sure that's depicted on this plan, and that's what I'd like to have you guys approve, if you would please.
See that, I don't see
Yeah, that's the thing. I know when you get a building permit, and in the code, it says for every unit you must provide, and I think it's 1 3/4 parking spaces. It's different for different types of so if you're going to put 100 units in there, then you got to provide 1 3/4 parking spaces times 100. So that would be
175.
Okay, so that's whatever that's what your requirement would be. Rather than say a specific number, if you're saying use the code, then I don't have a problem with that. But when you limit yourself, like Lowell's saying, to the 160, you may be shooting yourself in the foot for future, unless you're trying to cover the fact you're not going to put one of those units in there like that. Or it leaves it open so you can put commercial in there if you want to, because that's why you're getting the rezoning.
It looks like from what they've stated in the request is they've got 26 units per floor, 4 floors, that's 106, well, I don't know, I've got the math here. This looks like about 1.5 parks per unit, as opposed to 1 3/4 parks per unit. So they've got, what, 104 units,
I'll reiterate, if you guys want,
160 spots?
if you want, we'll just eliminate the 160 and just go per code. We have no problem with that.
That's fine.
Sometimes it's good to have a number so that we don't.
I think you'd be better off doing
I
that.
think you're better off doing it
Yeah.
that way.
I think everybody's better off.
Okay.
Because you may not develop what you've got drawn, but even though you say that's what we're gonna do, with the zoning you're getting, gives you the leeway to do something different. Which then the parking requirements would be different.
Any more questions for the agent or applicant? Okay, we'll go to the audience. Anybody in the audience like to speak on this case? Come forward, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon again. My name is Steve Falke. My address is number 3 Crestview Lakes Estates here in Wichita. I am speaking today on behalf of a majority of the residents of the Crestview Lakes Homeowners Association, which is a homeowners association directly to the west of this proposed rezoning. And I'd just like to make a few comments and then to read a brief letter into the record. First of all, we're very encouraged by the outcome of the traffic and all of the road construction that happened at the intersection that has been completed. That has mitigated several issues that were in the area, and we really appreciate your help in getting that done. Yes, we lost a huge golf course and a lot of green space, but the Innovation Campus, if you haven't seen it lately, is really shaping up, and it looks amazing. It really is bringing the property in the area up, I think. And so with that in mind, let me just read this for you. And we're comfortable with what they are proposing. We've looked at the site plan. We visited with a number of our residents. Yes, we would have liked to have seen the setback be a little bit larger, but we do like the addition of the landscaping and the green space, and especially the green space into those parking areas, the other trees and the other things to kind of break that up. This is going to greatly improve this section of land. It's basically a dilapidated parking lot behind the quick shop there, and a business that's been slowly failing. I would like to say that we would have liked to have seen 3 stories instead of 4, and I realize the zoning allows for 6. I would suggest a condition be set on this approval that it be limited to 4. I would like to encourage the developers to think about the possibility of working with the property owner that has the self-storage directly to the east of where you're developing. And then there's another dilapidated building there, and maybe there could be a purchase of that dilapidated building, move the security storage there, and have a little more room to build a larger place if you needed to. We'd prefer, less setback and lower vertical height, but we're willing to listen to whatever you might propose. Things that we do like about the site plan. It is a maximum, like we said, of 4 floors. We prefer 3. But we do like the self-contained courtyard with no outward-facing balconies. We think that will help with the noise, the light pollution, and the privacy. And there's some green space there and landscaping, which I alluded to earlier. We do feel that this design has a more upscale appearance, while it does keep with the neighborhood feel, and we do feel it will blend well with the Innovation Campus and the adjacent neighborhood. And I'd like to just read this brief letter into the record. Regarding case number...
Sir?
Yes.
You've exceeded your time, but I will give you, are you talking about the letter? Is that our...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Are those automatically in record if they're in your packets? Yes. Could I read it just for the benefit of the developer?
Thank you.
We haven't had it. It'll take less than a minute.
Go.
Regarding this case, to whom it may concern, we would like to thank the MAPC for its diligent work in overseeing and maintaining appropriate property redevelopment on the northeast corner of 21st and Oliver Streets in Wichita. We are encouraged to see adequate consideration of the adjacent neighborhoods when making zoning adjustment recommendations regarding the above-mentioned case number. We are resolved to maintain our vital relationship with city and county planners. We appreciate your sensitivity to all parties throughout any proceedings having effect on our unique neighborhood, and we wish the owners of record of the property in this case on the northeast corner of 21st and Oliver much success in this endeavor. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Any questions for the
Any questions?
Okay. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon again, Janet Wilson, 1152 North Estelle, WIN board member. It is a pleasure that what you're doing at 21st and Oliver, after seeing the decline in the neighborhood and seeing the Innovation Campus building, the multifamily aspect is really good because you don't have multifamily on campus. And the closer you can get to Wichita State, the better. Since we're in the ACC now, yay. You know, we're really being put on the map. The spotlight is on us. And anything that we can show off to show that the Northeast Quadrant is developing and getting better, I'm all for. The neighborhoods are for it. And it's part of the neighborhood revitalization plan, especially the 21st Street revitalization plan. And so as we move forward, when things like this come up, WIN is especially in favor of it. And also, if you look at the 21st Street and Oliver, construction is, you know, they got to tear it up before it looks good, but it's beautiful. The dual turn lanes are working beautiful. And I think that as we move forward with this concept, it will make the neighborhood more enjoyable. And millennials don't like cars. They like bicycles, buses, and walking. And so those will be the people that will be occupying those spaces. So keep that in mind, that they're not going to have a lot of cars because they want to walk, they want to ride bicycles, and they want to, you know, use public transportation. And so as those resources are available, they will take advantage of them, and it enhances the quality of life for everybody in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Go Shocks.
You know, we were my daddy.
Any questions?
We're going to miss the ball
Yeah,
game.
we're gonna miss that game.
You have to rate this, the game's gonna be over before we get
Listen
home.
to the beginning of it.
Next speaker, please. As I say, the only thing standing between us and the Shocker game is finishing this case.
Uh-oh, I need a step stool.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, my name is Julia Falke, 3 Crestview Lakes Estates. My husband Steve that just spoke, and we do welcome you to the neighborhood. We talked with the majority of our homeowners association members, and everyone was really pretty supportive of the plan that we saw, the concept plan. So I would just encourage you to talk to us, reach out to us, you know, as you're going through the process. And I truly hope that this is the type of thing that we're looking at, and that we're not being baited into a switch to just commercial property, because this is what the community is really behind, of revitalizing this, understanding that WSU needs to have space for their students that's within walking distance, cycling distance, and it helps to keep the neighborhood feel, which is something that we have fought for. I'm sure a lot of you remember that. And we continue to fight for neighborhood feel in our unique little area. So thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none? Thank you. Next speaker. Let me ask you a question. Are you concerned about the lighting in the parking lot? Are you? Okay. We have.
We will have, it's part of a standard with the CUP, and in fact, we've added a lot of things to the CUP, and lighting is one of those things. We have that lighting won't be dispersed outside the site. It'll be directed downward. A lot of the new commercial developments, as you've seen, have a much less just the lighting is much more compact and brought with the new lighting technologies. So I would just like to thank you guys for hearing our presentation. I know you guys are ready to get out of here, but we do hope that this project will renew and possibly revitalize some of the nearby properties. And I'd just like to introduce Bo, who's leading this project, and maybe he has a few words to say.
Thank you. Bo Pawhood, 9333 North Meridian Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. Thank you to staff. Thank you to the commission. Thank you to our consultants and partners here in Wichita. I look forward to continue on the design process and the entitlement process with you folks in the neighborhood. Representatives that are here today. As it relates to the adjacent property question that was brought up, we're actively engaged with our commercial neighbors in terms of parking restrictions and mutual parking agreements that are in place that run with the land. We're also in talks with them about the design and the access of the site. So to clear that up, I think all boxes are checked, and I think we're all on the same page. And I thank you again. And go Shockers, but I'm also from Indiana, and the Purdue Boilermakers are number 3 in the country. So gold and black, I'm a big fan of gold and black this year. Thank you.
Any questions for the owner, agent? Yes.
Coming back to the issue of height, we've looked at a nice drawing that shows the 4 stories. This would allow up to 6 stories. In terms of making this project feasible, is there anything less than 6 stories that you'd want on this application?
Sure. So right now we're trying to leave the option open to go to 6 stories, and that's purely, it's for a couple of reasons. We're not far enough into design to determine what the soils are or the elevations of the site are. So there's a couple engineering and construction items that are still to be determined, in addition to construction materials and the pricing of those.
So I think what you're saying is you want to keep the option open.
That's correct.
Any other questions? Thank you. Oh, Mr. Warren?
A question, I'll make a motion.
You sure can.
Move to approve, subject to change the wording of the parking to be per code.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Richardson. Any more discussion?
Well, even though the developer is a Purdue fan, I'll go ahead and vote for the motion.
You'll have that opportunity right now. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 11-0.
Get your
Yeah.
pay on the way out.
Are we done?
Yeah. We adjourn.
Go ahead. Go ahead.